Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we are looking at one of the absolute wildest corporate comeback narratives of recent years. We're talking about the 2026 turnaround of Novo Nordisck. Now, if you follow pharma, you already know how fast corporate fortunes can flip. The market is, frankly, unforgiving. But what we're seeing here, it's a literal masterclass in operational resilience. So let's look at the actual data and see exactly how a massive company navigates a crisis of confidence, completely restructures its growth avenues, and actually comes out on top. Okay, let's dive into this. A massive 7% stock surge in a single day. This happened on May 6, 2026, dropping right after their Q1 results went public. Now, a 7% jump for a company of this sheer size, that is huge. We're talking billions of dollars in market value just materializing overnight. It tells us that whatever was hiding inside that Q1 report, well, it wasn't just incrementally good news. It was an absolute shock to the system that forced the entire market to rapidly reevaluate what Novo Nordisck could actually pull off in the near term. But to really appreciate the height of that peak, we kind of have to look at the valley they were just crawling out of. Just months prior to that explosive surge back in February of 2026, the picture was honestly pretty bleak. The company's stock had actually hit a highly concerning 3-year low. Investor confidence was really starting to waver, and the broader market was asking some incredibly tough, pointed questions about their forward trajectory. Could they innovate past their existing portfolio? It was a moment of peak tension. To go from that dark 3-year low in February to a massive gap up in May requires a fundamental, tectonic shift in underlying momentum. Section 1, the massive Q1 beat. And this brilliantly illustrates exactly what happened. Revenue didn't just inch up. It literally rocketed to an astounding $14.97 billion. That's a 32% year-over-year increase. I mean, growth like that is usually reserved for nimble tech startups in their hyper-expansion phase, not established legacy pharmaceutical titans. When a massive player manages to increase its quarterly revenue by nearly a third compared to the previous year, you just know something extraordinary is happening under the hood. That completely uncharacteristic velocity is exactly why Wall Street was caught so off guard. And the bottom line reflects this triumph beautifully. It's almost a David versus Goliath moment against Wall Street's expectations. The forecast called for an EPS of 87 cents. But Novo Nordisck didn't just edge past that consensus. They absolutely crushed it, posting an actual EPS of $1.03. That wide gap between expectation and reality, that's exactly what fueled that massive stock surge we talked about earlier. It completely redefined their earning power in the eyes of institutional investors who had, quite frankly, already written off their immediate upside. Which brings us to Section 2, the Wegovy pill catalyst. This is the real secret sauce behind their 2026 success. The primary catalyst driving all this is the Wegovy pill. Listen, this isn't just some slight variation of an old product. It's a genuine breakthrough oral medication. By taking their incredibly successful treatment profile and adapting it into a highly accessible pill format, they basically bypassed all the traditional friction points of injectables. Boom! They unlocked an entirely new tier of consumer demand. This shift in the delivery method is without a doubt the single biggest operational factor driving that massive Q1 revenue boom. It completely changed the game for patient access. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is the immediate financial impact of this rollout. In its very first full quarter in the US market, the Wegovy pill generated an astonishing 2.26 billion Danish kroner. That translates to well over 330 million US dollars. Let that sink in for a second. For a first full quarter, those numbers are just staggering. In fact, this performance nearly doubled what even the most optimistic analysts had estimated it would bring in. It just goes to show that the market appetite for the specific oral medication was vastly, vastly underestimated across the board. Moving on to Section 3, cash flow and dividends. Let's look at the underlying metrics that prove this Q1 surge isn't just a flash in the pan, but a sustainable foundation. Looking at the trailing 12 months up to May 2026, annual revenue is sitting in that massive $46.8 to $48.6 billion range, tracking up 11 to 20% year over year. We do see a slight compression in their operating margin, landing at 42.23%. But honestly, that is a highly acceptable trade-off when you look at the broader expansion. Just look at the bottom row, that massive 34.02% Q1 revenue surprise versus forecasts. And importantly, through all this crazy growth, they are maintaining consistent dividend distribution, currently sitting at a really solid 11.70 Danish kroner. And speaking of the financial muscle required to pay those dividends, we have this phenomenal figure right here, 28.3 billion Danish kroner. This is their free cash flow rebound amount for 2025. You guys know this metric is the absolute lifeblood of any heavy industry or pharma company. Strong free cash flow means you have the agility to innovate, the capital to acquire, and, most importantly for shareholders, the stability to competently return value regardless of whatever macroeconomic headwinds are blowing. So the crucial point is that this 28.3 billion figure represents a full, robust rebound from a massive acquisition-related dip they took back in 2024. Because they absorbed that structural hit, integrated the new assets, and bounced right back up so incredibly fast, they firmly secured that strong 2025 dividend set at 11.70 Danish krone per share. It shows immense financial discipline and operational efficiency at a time when, let's face it, many of their peers are really struggling with capital allocation. Finally, Section 4, the raised 2026 outlook. Let's look at management's freshly updated roadmap for the rest of the year. Let's move to and see how this builds the case for long-term stability. Prior to this incredible quarter, previous guidance actually had investors bracing for a terrifying, quote, scary double-digit decline in adjusted sales and profits. Yikes, right? But thanks to the totally unexpected runaway success of the Wegovy pill and the sheer strength of their cash generation, management has completely rewritten this narrative. The new guidance anticipates a vastly narrowed and much more manageable contraction of just 4 to 12%. It is a massive sigh of relief for the market and proves the ship has been decisively steered away from the rocks. Going from a highly concerning 3-year low in February to a massive revenue beat, a successfully launched blockbuster pill, and radically improved forward guidance by May is nothing short of incredible. So I leave you with this as we wrap up this explainer. With Wegovy fueling such a massive cash rebound and thoroughly silencing Wall Street's doubts, has Novo Nordisck found the ultimate cure for the corporate slump? It is a fascinating question to ponder as we watch this turnaround story continue to unfold. Thanks for joining me, and keep learning.